Founder and CEO of the Transformational Travel Council. And very excited that you guys have chosen to spend some time with us today. We're going to have some fun and hopefully share some really great insights and wisdom around some of the work that we're doing in communities and destinations or DMOs, to use an industry term. And we're really getting excited to launch our search for our next early adopter of our Destination Regeneration program. We've had three early adopters. We started with Willamette Valley Visitors Association, led by Dawnielle Tehama, who is with us today. And then number two would be in Camano Islands. And number three was Visit Issaquah. And Christy's with us today on behalf of Visit Issaquah. And then we also did a recent program on experience development in the Blue Mountains in Australia with Simone Novello, who's with us today. So we're going to get into just uncovering what their experience was like working with us. We're tackling some really innovative and complex topics and strategies with transformative experience design and regenerative community development. For us at the TTC, we see that as like this really beautiful symbiosis, really powerful way to look at the future of travel and tourism. And today will be a chance to have like some insight on what was like for these DMO leaders to participate in such bold and brave change. So with that, we don't do anything conventional or traditional at the TTC. We like to shake things up a little bit. So we're gonna take more of a Socratic method. So we're gonna stoke some curiosity, and we're gonna have this roundtable discussion. This is going to be rooted in, like I said, curiosity and inquiry and collective meaning making. And rather than presenting answers or necessarily, solutioneering, which is what a lot of us like to do, we're going to explore some thoughtful questions that invite reflection and spark insight and deepen our understanding of what it means to lead regenerative and transformative work in our destinations. So this is a space today for honest exchange, shared learning, and discovering new possibilities together. So again, thanks for being here. We will start with just the participants. We've got Jillian Dickens, our director of special products and head of destination stewardship, that's going to be part of the conversation. Christy, Dawnielle, who I mentioned, and Simone. So why don't we start with each of you just sharing a little bit about yourself? Christy, would you like to go first?
Hey, everybody. My name's Christy Garrard, and I represent Visit Issaquah. I was the executive director for almost the last 4 years and recently professionally retired, but transitioned to the Visit Issaquah board of directors so that I can continue to steward our destination regenerative tourism plan into the future. We've worked really hard on this project, and I want to see it launched and continue to be successful. I got introduced to the TTC 3 years ago and went through the virtual experience design curriculum, and was so inspired by what I learned there, and how I really felt like it fit Issaquah, Washington. We're a emerging mountain town destination just 20 miles east of downtown Seattle. And so from there, just started engaging with Jake and Jillian to eventually launch our program. And it's been a great ride.
Thank you, Christy. It has been a great ride. How about you, Danielle?
Lisa Gao assesses Dawnielle Tehama, Gao McClick Shaw's American Indigenous Tourism, and the Education Business Director for what was formerly American Indian Alaska Native Tourism Association. We are now American Indigenous Tourism Association. And I've been with the organization only about 90 days. But prior to that, I've been in the tourism industry for over 20 years, and decided that what was making me uncomfortable with DMOs that are fundamentally structured to drive growth was, we're looking at more visitors, more spending, more heads in beds, How can an organization be built for extraction lead to stewardship and sustainability? And that's what sparked our conversation years ago. And I was also with the TTC during COVID. I've worked with Jillian and Jake and the team on quite a few projects, including, unpacking us initiatives, and always keep coming back because this is a group of thought leaders that, can understand that maybe transformative leadership means being honest about when our institutions need to get out of the way. So we, as a regional DMO in the Willamette Valley, we had 33 DMOs under us. And structurally, it was the best idea and the best direction to grow the river valley in a responsible and sustainable or more stewardship driven way. And a lot of it really has continued to take foothold even after my departure. But yeah, happy to be here and meet everyone. Looking forward to this conversation.
Thanks, Dawnielle. Simone.
Hi everyone. I didn't come from tourism per se, but I spent 10 years in large scale loyalty programs for airlines and banks. So I always say I'm here for redemption because at the time I didn't realize, what the growth economy was doing. So I ran my own company, then I joined council in late 2022. Had never worked for a local government organisation either, but I'd worked with a myriad of industries, came into this organisation in a region where there's a deeply entrenched traditional tourism paradigm. We're a mass tourism destination. We see 4+ million visitors a year. We're the most visited national park in Australia. We're 90 minutes from Sydney. One of only 2 cities in the world surrounded by a World Heritage Area, the other one being Banff. And I'm told Jasper is technically not a city. So if anyone wondering. So we have a real responsibility to care for this place. And I was thrilled to participate in the Blue Mountains World Heritage Institute celebrations last week of 25 years of World Heritage. We were listed in the year 2000. So that was a really proud moment. Even I learned more about the history of conservation in this region, decades long. Another really fascinating thing that came up recently was Dargan shelter that they found in the Blue Mountains, which proved that there was Aboriginal occupation here 20,000 years ago. So this destination had been thought to be a transitionary holiday place for the Indigenous peoples, but they've actually demonstrated they were living here during the Ice Age as well. So that's incredibly historically significant. And I've also heard, because we're Australia down here, that I was surprised to discover we're apparently, I think something like 400 times older than the Grand Canyon in the Blue Mountains. So really special place. I haven't verified that fact, so I don't use it a lot, but it's come up a few times that we are actually way older. I don't know how much exactly, but really special place. And yet the tourism industry here was dominated by that sense of we need more visitors, more visitors, more visitors, and not great quality visitors. A lot of low spending visitors that throw rubbish in the bush and don't really care for the place. So we've been doing a lot of work on stewardship. I came across the TTC prior to joining council and was already interested in going down this path. I think tourism can be used as an incredible force for good and visitation. We can influence a lot of people. So we officially launched Destination Stewardship here as the first destination in Australia to commit to that model last week. The new destination management plan, which made that commitment, was endorsed in March of this year. So that was about 2.5 years in the making. We have an excellent collaboration across national parks, our Darug and Gundungurra representatives, and our Blue Mountains Tourism and Council. So it's just been fantastic. And the launch was very successful last week. So really stoked. And that's us.
All right. Thank you, Simone. So glad you're here. Jillian, we've taken a few of these destinations on some long journeys and still on journey with some of them, 9, 12, I think 18 months, some of them. Anything that you'd like to add before we jump in?
Yeah, just that I've been doing destination development work for about 20 years in various parts of the world, and it's always been done in a very very classic way. The every consultant, every agency does it pretty much the same. And it's been such a breath of fresh air and a challenge as well. And to be working with the Transformational Travel Council and seeing all of these new ways of thinking and doing things. And it's just been such an honor to, I mean, and doesn't always work. There's been some things that haven't worked so well and some things that have worked really well. And but what you would never know unless you really tried. And what we do know is that traditional destination development, mass market, et cetera, doesn't work very well. And so we need to look at a different way of doing things. And it's been an honor to be able to do that at the TTC and with these beautiful people so far. And over the last 4 years since we began this work in destination with destination regeneration, and then the experience development work we've been doing with destinations too. So I just want to say, super thankful for all y'all visionaries and to join us and on these various lengthy journeys that we've taken or are about to take, or et cetera, et cetera. But and I am based in Spain and I am Canadian. That is me.
Thanks, Jillian. All right. So I mentioned a little bit about the Socratic method. We want to get away from the panel, the traditional Q&A, make it a little bit more organic. So, it's kind of exciting because our participants today haven't been told the questions that they're going to be answering today. And so, give them some grace and we'll make our way through it. But I think it'll be more alive than what you traditionally see in some of these discussions. So, this is also a glimpse into how we take this approach. We typically sit in circle when we work with our destinations and the stakeholders. We like to have, eyes seeing each other. Everyone's equal. All voices matter, right? And so this is a glimpse into how we do that. And we have really rich dialogue. And we create space for people to be co-creators. And as we kick off most of our programs, we love to talk about, Socrates and that Greek philosopher. Well, another Greek philosopher, Aristotle, has a word called eudaimonia. And we always talk about that as we kick off any program. And that's the sense of feeling alive, feeling happy, feeling fulfilled, and that being really what we're trying to do with our work at the TTC. And when we talk about regeneration, it's around creating the conditions for all life to thrive, for all life to feel alive. And so we'll start there, and I will ask each of our participants in one sentence, what's alive for you today as we come together?
What's alive for me today is Issaquah's potential. We are hosting the Nutcracker Ballet for the very first time, professionally performed in Issaquah, and it's been a co-creation effort that came out of our destination regeneration work, and yeah, so we're really excited about that.
Thank you, Christy. Dawnielle or Simone?
Yeah, I would say if it's one sentence, I would say we stop managing for stakeholders and start following the leadership of those who've been stewarding the place all along.
Fantastic. And Simone?
That's a big question for a Friday morning. We have been, well, look, council's been involved in a decades-long commitment to sustainability, and it's pretty exciting that that's been recognised as a finalist in the Banksia Awards, which will be held on Tuesday. So, and it's the coming together of multiple agencies and multiple services and work over a long period of time, not jumping on a bandwagon of, it's cool to be green. So yeah, that's really, it's all coming together. I think it's just that flow and alignment, which is very exciting.
All right. Thank you. So this is a process. You guys are working on projects that take a commitment and a strategy across time, right? And one of the things that we talk about in the program with each of you is that 100-year strategy, right? We like to that approach of cathedral thinking. We are creating destinations and communities for generations to come, which is super important to look at it through that lens. So as we went through this transformative process with you and your stakeholders, what did you notice about yourself as you moved through the work?
I'll jump in. I think when we had the workshop, what I loved was like myself was just the role of facilitator because I see I don't know, I guess I'm just got that brain that kind of looks at things a certain way. And, local government and tourism are very unique cultures and, very deeply entrenched paradigms in terms of how they operate. And so the most important thing was to get that mindset shift across these multiple agencies and influencers and decision makers. And so what I loved about the workshop was your ability to do that and your ability to present information in a way that would appeal to the motivations of each of those stakeholders. So I loved, for me, I got really excited about the economic element because I know that what holds back a lot of those efforts around conservation and planetary health is, but we have to make money and that's, urgent and important. And it's really being able to demonstrate this is not only the right thing to do, it's how the destination will prosper.
Mhm. Thank you.
And I just to expand on that a little bit from my perspective, I think there's a lot of tension in destinations to push that fundamental change when you've decided to undertake that systemic, that organizational structural change, and the specific shift from stakeholder or visitor or consumer management and transactional to following your community and looking at grassroots. And I actually felt the weight lift. It was an understanding that I stopped needing to have to fix everything during my tenure because I cared about my destination. It was when I accepted that I'm one generation and it's a much larger arc. And I would have conversations with people even in our in-person sessions where it's talking about my children or my grandchildren or those and that's actually an indigenous learning as well. So I was able to wrap my head around that, right? Of like the 7 generation principle and understanding that we have this relational power sharing, and if someone pushes back or asks to elaborate on this, there's a lot of rich territory that we can lean in as destination leaders. It's what does following actually look like in practice? And then who are the stewards that we've been ignoring? So for me, it was like there was a weight lifted because I wanted to make sure to instill some things and some goodness while I was at the destination, and I can do my part well and trust others to do theirs by calling out what's important to them and looking at who isn't at the table and who traditionally has not been part of the planning efforts, and looking at that transformative leadership being faithful to the work, not obsessed with finishing it, if that makes sense.
Just thinking,
Yeah,
I want to add to who's not at the table. One thing that we try to do is always have a symbolic element of nature at least at the table. So we probably at the last minute in the morning workshop day. Oh, we've got to get some of nature and from around the place and build a bouquet and put it on a chair, and so that there's always a reminder about nature not necessarily having a human voice, but to be able to recognize that this always needs to be considered. So we do this symbolically. And then we're thinking about ways we can bring wildlife into the conversation in a similar sense and things like that. So trying to expand the who's at the table and recognize who might not have a seat at the table, just like you said, Dawnielle.
Yeah, I think I want to give space to Jake, but just to wrap up that thought, something that I don't think I ever shared with Jillian and Jake and the team. I used to ask myself all the time, I'd go into these knowing that I was going to be faced with a lot of difficult conversations for people who were not ready for this. And I used to ask myself, in addition to bringing nature to the table, what has to thrive, what has to die for this shift to happen? And that's a harder
Mhm.
conversation sometimes, but it's like once you realize that, then you're ready, and it's going to be powerful, and it's going to be a good conversation, but you have to acknowledge both.
And you also have to acknowledge that there's going to be a lot of people that might not necessarily want to do something new and different, and they might give a lot of energy against it. And sometimes it's okay to say that they don't necessarily have to be involved at this moment. Building up momentum to allow for that to eventually them eventually to come or fall off. But that's okay, because that's the way that it's okay. And not everybody has to have buy-in. And sometimes the critics and the critics are better to be ignored, which is pretty controversial, I think, especially in representation and leadership. But it is something that we have talked about and just strategically worked with in some cases.
Yeah, Anna Pollock is one of the leading thought leaders around regeneration, regenerative development, and communities and tourism. And I've heard her say something around some data around like 95% of us have a really hard time wrapping our minds around regeneration and what that means and how to participate and adopt a regenerative mindset. And so it's been really a challenge for us and our destination leaders, which I'll tee it up for you, Christy, because I witnessed you face that day in and day out, and really standing strong and adapting and being resilient. But I'm sure you've got some thoughts to share.
Yeah, and I always enjoy getting to present alongside Dawnielle, because Dawnielle represents a experience, 20 years plus experience and in a regional DMO perspective. And then I come from our destination marketing organization is fairly new, only formed in 2018, and then had a lack during COVID. So when I started in 2022, we were just basically starting over. One of the challenges that I initially faced, and I'm not sure, well, where everyone, all of our participants here today are representing across the planet, but most of my key visitor assets didn't recognize themselves as a visitor economy business. They're nonprofit environmental advocacy organizations that do incredible experiential programming. They didn't, but they were just doing it because it is part of their mission. And so my initial challenge was introducing this idea of how they could help their mission success by really working on their experience development that would benefit the visitor economy as well as their mission. So that was kind of the first conversation that I had to have to kind of get everybody on board of like, no, let's do this together. We don't have a strategic plan. You leaders are the reason people come to Issaquah and what makes it so special around environmental advocacy. And so that was kind of the first challenge. And then once we finally secured funding to be able to engage in the destination regeneration process 18 months ago, we got started with a small group of leaders in the summer of 2024. And so we kind of built like a nucleus of leadership. And then we launched in February of this year with a larger cohort. At the same time that the United States presidential election had happened and we had new leadership in Washington, D.C., and most of my environmental advocacy organizations were impacted negatively in one way or another because of a variety of reasons and cuts to staffing and grant funding and all these things. So now we're launching into a destination regeneration program. and I'm having a hell of a time keeping their focus because they're trying, they just survived COVID, and now we're back in it with all this uncertainty around their particular areas of expertise. So that made it, that made it really challenging. So I guess I would say what I learned about myself is it was critical that I stayed positive in my mindset, and that we were doing groundbreaking work, that we were, you know, um, you know, getting ahead of the curve and leading in Washington State on how to grow the tourism, the visitor economy in a sustainable and responsible way, which they could understand because that's where they come from in terms of sustainability and such. So it was a long haul of trying to stay positive, lots of one-on-one conversations, lots of time when Jake and Jillian were, pumping me up to push me back out there to get in front of the group and keep them engaged. And so it was worth it. It was a long haul, but it was worth it.
Yeah, yeah, and you did a wonderful job of meeting everyone where they're at, right? And we did some challenging work. Simone mentioned mindset and getting that mindset shift. And we would dive into what are your values, what matters, what is your purpose, trying to illuminate, and inspire people to connect with their work and their community in a different way, and to become more cooperative with one another. A lot of this is about working in emergence, right? And that is complicated. So as we take us through that program, or as we move through the program, we also integrated like some playful aspects. Christy, we had that professional clown, Mick, that was in our circle, and he was able to really bring some great exercises and fun and playful ways for us to engage as a community too. And I think that's really important. We are talking about deep work, we're talking about systems change, but it's also just a heck of a lot of fun to be around some really good people that care. And so thank you,
And the
Christy.
bonding that
The
happened
bonding.
over the course of those months of tough, difficult things happening, swirling all around, but also having some fun and supporting each other in the circle. And yeah.
Dawnielle, did you want to? I saw something in the chat pop up. Is there another thought you wanted to contribute to finish what you were saying?
I was just clarifying what I meant, because to come off me and be like, I felt things needed to die. So I just wanted to clarify what I meant by that definition. Things like ego, things like understanding that growth uh, doesn't equal success all the time. Sometimes it's pulling back growth and not receiving as many visitors. And so it was just more or less a clarification, so that I didn't just leave that with like, we killed things during the process. Because it was about growth in that mindset that we care about, our river valley, we care about our destination, we care about generations to come, and the things that needed to go away. That's just how I framed it in my mind, of like, these are the things that we do not need to continue any longer as we grow in a more regenerative way.
Absolutely. We have to create space for it. And we have to let things go sometimes. And some of these dated patterns, behaviors, strategies, they have not served us all that well. So, as you've gone through this process, what has surprised you most about the perspectives from the community and the stakeholders, the different partners involved? How did you see them sort of evolve, and what was surprising for you?
For us in being a fairly new DMO, we had some city administration leadership that really didn't see Issaquah as a visitor destination. And, to be able to change mindset through this cohort work and the ultimate end result of a regenerative strategic plan for growing the visitor economy in a sustainable way that protects the values of the people who live here, as well as our indigenous communities, really showed a powerful shift where a lot of our funding comes from. So that was also a powerful transformation.
Jillian, did you have a thought before
Yeah,
I?
do you know what I'm feeling right now is I just want to make sure that that those on the call know we're what you guys are talking about. Like what you've done in terms of like when you say the process and things. And I don't know if that we really set that up, teed that up that well. Can you guys everybody raise their hand like to say like you know what it is that we're talking about, like what the big change was and what happened? Not really, right? Not I'm getting like a 25%.
Mm.
I think that what we're talking about is that is long-term destination stewardship planning done differently. So be taking a really deep, like it's a community building first and taking a really deep look and deep, I don't know, a lot of time connecting with the community members, bringing them together, and then doing deep work to consider what it is that they want their destination to be, and then thinking about this from potential rather than from lack. Like, here are the problems that we have. So let's fix them rather than it instead of that, it's what can this be? The 100-year goal of paradise or whatever, nirvana, or whatever it might be, and then work back from there. So and this planning, so long-term stewardship planning and the work that the work we did with Simone has been is we're just starting to work together, but Simone, you've been doing this through in a different within a different group. We weren't apart, but we understand it's similar, right? Like looking at how to shift from a consumeristic mass market tourism setup to something that is a lot more intentional and responsible. So it's shifting, right? Doing something. In Christy's case, it's starting from the beginning, building from building from this beautiful place. Dawnielle, I think it's doing it a little bit where you were looking to reconnect, like connect the region, all of the different, what was it, 17, 32, I never remember.
33.
Connecting all of these communities together under one kind of mission of responsible and regenerative tourism. And Simone, yes, it's like shifting. So doing this, and I guess the big difference in the way that is mindset, looking at it from potential, looking within first. What is it that matters to you? What are your values? So that, we aren't just having the exact same conversations over and over, like, the event strategy isn't working. We need a different event, or we need to market more. We need to market less, or all these things that are being talked about that aren't necessarily important. It's like, what is really important and what can it be? And then so building from there a long-term approach. And when we're doing that, we're building out capacity among the community and trying to ensure that there's like self-organization and we're getting out of the way. So this is what we're talking about, and the reason it's different is, yeah, mindset, taking time, and I would love to know how else it's different. Dawnielle, maybe you could say how else it's different
Yeah,
than
I, I'll
exactly.
I'll I'll give you a general understanding of why I did what I did and why I decided to be the first early adopter is for me, and this isn't just personally, this was professionally looking at my partnerships and looking at the destination that I was. I mean, my tribe's from Oregon. I was overseeing a region in Oregon. It's very important to me that we continue to steward our lands appropriately. So if that means the 100-year goal is that destinations don't need us anymore, that communities have such sovereignty over their own place and their own stories and their own economies that destination marketing organizations as we know them are obsolete, and we've worked ourselves out of a job because the power is returned to where it belongs. That is why I undertook this direction. And it's not metaphorical that I want my great grandchildren to drink from a river, right? It's actually drink from it, that the land is restored, that relationships are reciprocal, that the place is healthier than when we started. I mean, I think all of us can agree that we want to sustain something while we're in this place because there's beauty here and there's stories to be shared. And to look at it from a perspective of, does this restore or extract, right? We went through this, Christy went through this, sounds like Simone's, it's the same concept, restorative, restractive. Are we looking to heal or harm? And does tourism in general become a tool for regeneration, or is it consumption? And so diving into those buckets, I mean, it's definitely more than that, right? But if I were to summarize as best as I can in a brief scenario, it's that we are thriving and speaking languages that are understood across communities, and we're practicing things on land that we control, and we're teaching things that tourism didn't commodify or dilute. That's why I did this. That's why I took the initiative as a leader to say it's important that we still have you pick blueberry farms in the Willamette Valley. It's important that we still have our ecologists working with the tourism industry for heat mapping so we don't overpopulate our rivers and our open spaces. And it's important that we have a strategy to support what this looks like, not every partnership, every dollar, that we look at the stewardship of place.
Well said, Dawnielle. Yeah, I mean, it's about putting the people and the place and the life first, the life within that community first, and developing the strategy from there. Christy, Simone, anything to add on that?
Yeah, I just will add, for us, our region was very fragmented. So we have about 80,000 residents. So there's about, I don't know, 56 visitors per resident, basically. And negative sentiment largely from residents towards visitors and tourists. And I think that was and I guess a mindset from traditional tourism operators that we can't control who comes up here and how they behave. That's just how it is. And we just need more of them. And they were really kind of entrenched mindsets. And so you had the conservation movement over here, you had the traditional tourism operators over there, you had residents over here. And it was just it was quite lack of cohesion as well. So it was starting to look at how we brought everyone together and starting to demonstrate using language that everyone understood and that unified, like spend data and economics, and saying, well, actually, your highest value visitors are your best visitors in terms of behavior. And then that can help fund better messaging to encourage better behavior from the rest of the people who come, who, deserve to experience these pristine wild places and genuinely connect with them. And so it was a process of, and I liked what you said about meeting people where they are and kind of, being patient about bringing people along for the journey, because we had a lot of resistance in the beginning from some very powerful organizations in the region. But they're really coming along now and understanding that this is the road to prosperity. It is necessary to protect the assets upon which we trade. And that, we can influence positive behavior by presenting ourselves in a really authentic way, instead of having light shows in the World Heritage Rainforest and putting on these really tacky spectacles that obviously attract a certain type of visitor and behavior. If we're not respecting our own place, you can't expect people to come here and do that. So it was just getting really cohesive and on board with what this stewardship strategy looks like and how we deliver it in a really authentic way, and how we unify planetary benefits, human benefits, and economic benefits, because people are going to sit in one or more of those camps, and being able to present the benefits of this in those three perspectives is going to help us get different stakeholders on board, when one may be very economically driven and one may be more planetary driven, and you're trying to create that cohesion.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you, Simone. So when we talk about regeneration and at a community-based level, all of you have been through our experience development program, our transformative experience development program, as well. So from your perspective, what's the greatest potential for transformative visitor experiences to contribute to well-being, ecological health, and cultural continuity? You're gonna have to go back to some of our training, think back to what was it that Jake was talking about?
I loved what Christy said earlier about organizations that are focused and don't see themselves as part of the visitor economy and are focused on
Mhm.
conservation, for example. They have amazing experiences to offer. I think people would love to come up here and plant the right kind of trees in the right places or have other really connected experiences. And Echo Point, where the Three Sisters are, is, globally renowned location, the second most visited site to Sydney and the most visited Aboriginal site in Australia. And so we get about 2 million visitors just to that one site. And we've just about to launch Aboriginal cultural talks. And there's been a whole bunch of reasons why that hasn't been possible until now. And it's taken a lot of patience and trust building and just doing things the right way to make that happen. And that means that people that come there on the buses and get off to take their narcissistic selfie with the ancient backdrop as a minor backdrop are going to have an opportunity to actually really genuinely connect with this incredible place. And that even if they're only there for half an hour, it still enables you to have more of an influence on wanting them to connect more deeply and come back again and have a more soul-nourishing experience than just hopping off a bus, getting your "I've been here" selfie and jumping back on the bus. So
Right.
that's a great opportunity.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
think.
we talk. Go
Oh, go
ahead,
ahead. Do you want me to
please.
go? Okay. Through our cohort was made up of community leaders that have a connection to the visitor economy, whether it's environmental advocacy, outdoor recreation, arts and culture, and tribal representation. And so, we started with talking about what are the shared values of this community, in terms of its preservation and why we love it. And one of the examples that I share often is in Issaquah, Washington, salmon are sacred. We have the oldest working salmon hatchery in Washington State, located in the heart of our historic downtown. Most fish hatcheries are out in the middle of the woods down a dirt road, and they're not open to the public. And so we have this environmental education center in the heart of our historic downtown that is fully focused on protecting the salmon population for our ecosystem, and are incredibly sacred to our local tribes. And so all that being said, with these shared values, we were able to create a set of visitor personas, that we will now target for marketing, who we want to attract to visit Issaquah because they share our values and they're going to appreciate what they learn when they come. And when you talk about something like the life cycle of the salmon, the miracle of the life cycle of the salmon, that they return to their natal waters to spawn and keep the population growing, it makes a visitor who didn't know that life cycle story, they leave changed. They leave changed about how they treat their waterways and how they buy their seafood. And they go back to maybe Middle America and say, did you know that salmon are born in fresh water and live their adult life in salt water and return back to the waters where they were born? I mean, that just blows people's mind. And that salmon DNA is found in our timber in the Pacific Northwest. Like, that just blows people's mind. And when you can share those types of experiential stories during a visitor, that appreciates these things, it helps amplify the message of the missions of these environmental advocacy organizations, and that's where change begins.
Yeah, absolutely. With these experiences, we want to be able to cultivate that essence of place, right? And that's what you're just describing. Salmon is part of the fabric of your community. So we've got 10 minutes left, and would love to give a little bit of time for some questions from our friends here. But before we do that, maybe Christy and Dawnielle and Simone, maybe you could say a little bit about purpose. We talk about regeneration, and cultivating a sense of purpose and your own purpose in your community. You guys have done that as leaders. What do you think the role of this next generation of DMOs or DMMOs, management and marketing organizations? What is their purpose? What is some wisdom that you'd like to leave them with?
I can jump in. I think a good example of this is we have been working with our visitor information center staff and kind of shifting their mindset from you sell magnets and give information. When I started, the magnets were Aboriginal flag magnets from China. So they were not at all authentic to anything. And then we've been taking them on this journey of having this stewardship purpose. And the vast majority of those staff members are absolutely thrilled at the opportunity to shift away from our destination being a superficial spectacle and actually being something so much more, because everyone who lives here really loves this place. So it was the opportunity to build that purpose into the work, right from grassroots organizations and staff members through to the executive leadership team and the CEO who's been driving this sustainability journey for decades. So it's been very unifying, and the purpose just makes everybody relentlessly driven, even when you do encounter obstacles or challenges.
Thank you, Simone. Dawnielle or Christy?
For
Yeah, I
us,
would
it was,
say,
go ahead, Dawnielle.
no, go ahead, Christy.
For us, it's getting ahead of the issues of over-tourism and the negative impact that it has on a community in a way that is groundbreaking in our approach, using the philosophy of the Transformational Travel Council's transformation economy. The transformation economy is coming. And so what I would say to like-sized DMOs who are dealing with issues similar to what Simone said about locals being anti-tourism. Well, in a town like Issaquah, Washington, our small businesses won't succeed without the visitor economy. But we can get ahead of that and be very strategic and purposeful about how we grow the economy from a community-based approach using the philosophies of the Transformational Travel Council. So I just would say that if you don't get on board, you're going to be behind.
Thank you, Christy.
Yeah, I agree with that. I would say dismantling the systems that treated our destinations like commodities and build accountable relationships in their place. I think ensuring tourism regenerates more than it takes, or it doesn't happen at all. I think that's the direction. That's that cathedral thinking, right? That's the 100-year strategy. That's the work, and that's the anchor, is dismantling what isn't working and building a community that is cohesive.
Thank you, Dawnielle. Well done, Circle. All right, we've got some really amazing folks here that I know, and I'm glad that you showed up. Any questions from any of you for our group? And we've got about 6 minutes, but happy to stay on a little bit longer. But I want to respect everyone's time, so feel free to drop off at that point. But anyway, let's let it flow. Any questions for our participants?
I'll just start by saying thank you. I appreciate being invited today. This was the first time that I've joined any of the conversations through the TTC, and I've always been really curious about what it's really all about. And I speak the same language, not at the same scale of influence that you all are at. I live in Hawaii, and I'm one of the stewards of the Kona Cloud Forest Sanctuary, which is a forest that my father, it was actually a deforested ranch at one time. And 40 years ago, my father inspired the vision to reforest it and turn it into a living classroom and educate people on the importance of protecting it. We're the only advocates for the watershed ecosystem here on this side of the island and the role that the cloud forest plays in that. And so, I would love to see Hawaii, be a part of your collective, some like the Hawaii Tourism Authority. I think that there's a lot of work that needs to be done. And we are a very small voice in that, but we're in the process of creating a new forest management plan, taking it to the state level, because there's, the right hand's not talking to the left hand here. And it has to do with, sustainability, but also tourism, and they both kind of go hand in hand. So how the visitors are arriving here and how we can elevate their level of respect and responsibility. But also here in our little community, that's, the state talks about sustainability being important, but here we have the planning department, approving permits for people to purchase 20 acres and then bulldoze down the whole 20 acres and build houses and things of that sort. So, and there's, invasive species growing all over the place. So there's a lot of different facets to it. And some of the things that you spoke to, really spoke to me as well. And so I appreciate it, just hearing that this is an initiative that is the initiative of just creating more sustainability and more awareness for visitors across the board. And I actually lived in Seattle for a while, so I'm familiar with Issaquah. So I really commend you and what you've been doing there. Yeah, so I just wanted to say thank you. And it's, I feel like there's so much more for me to learn. And some of the words that you used, I was like, what does that word really mean to you? So I feel like there's a lot more, to learn and be discussed. But I appreciate you,
Thank you, Nadara.
everything you shared.
Well, this is why we're the Transformational Travel Council, right? We're trying to create some positive change. Transformation is a big word.
Yeah.
And it's daunting and it's scary, intimidating, and all of those things. But we do feel that like shifting mindsets and opening minds and hearts and making space for new ideas and perspectives and new strategies is critical, especially in this moment. And so yeah, I appreciate that. We'll definitely have to connect after this.
Yeah, that sounds great.
Thank you. Yeah, Lisa.
Hi. I just want to say I've been to the Cone of Cloud Forest. I think I told Jake about it. So
Oh,
that's such
nice.
loved your tour. I forget who gave us an amazing tour. So thank
When
you.
were you here?
I was there 2 years ago, but then I told Jake, and didn't you go with Olive?
Yeah, you
Yeah.
made the connection, Lisa. Yes, you're right. You told
Friends
me
had
about
told
them.
me, but it's a cool place, and I wish you all, good work
Thank
with that.
you.
I wrote down your name to be in touch next time. Thank you
Yeah.
all for this as well. I have a question I'll throw out, having heard about this program for years as an advisor to Jake and the TTC. I took the TDC experience class during COVID. But
Transformative design
love,
program, experience
yeah,
design program, our signature program. Yeah.
I loved it. I'm a small business travel, and it really helped think about my own approach to travel and the few trips I planned for others. And I'm a huge Issaquah fan from the earliest days. I live about 10 minutes away. But my question for you all, especially Dawnielle and Simone and Christy, is like, this is a big thing. And I know with Jake and Jillian, we're trying to get more destinations to be early adopters, to actually put the time and the dollars into a major initiative. When you, and I need to go back and read or think, but case studies, I think when you talk to some other new one who's considering it, and you're talking about mindsets and things that are so important and yet so hard, how do you begin to measure success? It's a very big question, and there may be I'm sure it's a whole topic, but just some things that have helped you say, hey, I got all my stakeholders together. We did this whole process, and things are different now, and I can show that because X, Y, or Z. I'm just curious what comes up.
For Issaquah, it's still TBD. So we have our 100-year ambitions, and then from that we pulled 10-year goals or 10-year initiatives. So we just wrapped our community-based cohort work in the beginning of November, and so we're going to be creating a smaller subcommittee of that group across all the sectors I mentioned earlier in January, and then they'll each take one of the goals, and we'll start, ticking away at how we can influence that change. Lisa, I'll email you our strategic plan, so
I would love
have
to
that
see it now.
to follow along.
But
that's so we're just getting started, and
it's a big one
we'll
because with scarce resources, I want all the right organizations to go through this program and to take that time. But any other answers from the other two?
Yeah, I would say it's for me and working in the Willamette Valley with the DMOs that we brought along with this. We were governed by an all DMO board. It's a mindset shift that matters most. So we're moving from we're the experts to we're accountable. So having that conversation first and foremost, and it's a shift from confidence to humility as well, right? Like listening in and on planning sessions and understanding that we are the shift that has to happen before the rest of the work, but also no longer asking. So it's like watching the room and reading the room and looking at your partners and realizing that there's a moment when someone stops asking, how do we do this? Because everyone wants the playbook, right? And you don't get the playbook right away. But the conversation shifts from how do we do this to who am I becoming? And it's also getting uncomfortable with the ones that are ready for a power share, not just a rebrand, and those that really, I remember in person we were saying there's workers and lurkers, right? We want the workers involved in this. We're always going to have the lurkers that are in the background watching to see because change is good, but you go first. So, you're always going to have that component, but we need to be okay with saying you're not ready yet to come along with us. To Christy's point, right? We have to meet people where they are. So it's okay that you're not coming with us. We're scaling broadly, and we need to go deep with destinations that are genuinely ready to dismantle and rebuild. I mean, that is at the crux of all this. It might look like box checking or it's nice and shiny and look at this work, but there was a lot of it was the messy middle, right, Jillian? I mean, I think you use that a lot now, the messy middle, and it's really, really messy. So just understanding that, we're doing this because it's undeniable that people are coming to ask to change, not because it's trendy, but because they've witnessed actual transformations and they want to be involved in that systemic change.
Thank you so much.
I might answer those questions, both Mace's and yours. So Mace asked, referencing large entrenched interest, changing their perspective and approach based on the process used, and what I thought was compelling for those interests to change. So look, I think there's a few key things I've learned along the way. The messy middle was definitely very messy. I had the ultimate compliment with one of the powerful stakeholders saying, well, Simone, you led us here. And it's like, well, it was more like dragging you, kicking and screaming, but it was nice to be recognized that they're actually quite happy to be here now. And they're starting to see that they can align with success and that this is visionary and forward thinking and that, we want to drive the change rather than letting change happen to us. Because our region faces a lot of challenges with landslide and climate change and bushfire and, we were heavily impacted by COVID. So this is about building a more resilient destination, but you're dealing with, people who inherited these tourism organizations that have been around for 80 years and have always done things a certain way. And so we had to have a two-speed strategy, which was, let's show the quick wins of this approach, but also work towards this longer term vision. So, and that's a council thing too, because, people need to see outcomes. And so we had to find ways to implement this two-speed strategy, which we have, and creating that kind of alignment and flow. There's 3 golden rules to partnership. Partnership's critical and building that trust is critical. And the 3 golden rules of partnership is it must be win-win. There must be aligned values and an aligned target market. Now, of course, our challenge was that those big tourism operators wanted mass market. They want people on buses. They want people that are coming there for a quick superficial day visit that are going to go to their location, then straight back to Sydney, which is not what residents want, which is not what most other stakeholders up here want. What we were managed to do through credit card spend data was show and analyze the data and actually say, we only need 1 million of the higher value visitors from these source markets and these segments. with these terrific behaviors to bring the same economic value as the 4, 5, 6 million that you're saying you want, or 7 or 8 million actually of the lower end, because there's a vast difference. You know, your lower value, higher impact visitor spends $75 a visit, and your high value, lower impact visitor is spending $300 a visit. So that's a vast difference. And I think, as the Indigenous stakeholders said, we have an obligation to share country with people who don't have it. We don't want kids being scared of nature because they're not spending time there. But it's the two-speed strategy, as well as saying, let's spend and invest in the higher value segments, and then use the money that comes in to shape the behaviors and bring everyone else along for the journey. So I think those were just some of the tangible things that we did, and using those commercial strategies that I guess I learned in the first 10 years of my career, but using them for good. So, you know, that was a really important thing. So using data and commercial strategies, but using it to drive force for good, because that brought those economically powerful players along when they started to see, oh, Simone was talking about dark skies 2 years ago when I was told that's just a niche, it'll never be a thing. And now noctourism is one of the biggest trends globally. And so it's good to be able to say, you know, there's thinking behind this kind of vision. It's not what was I called? Idealistic. It's not idealistic.
Thank you, Simone. Any other questions?
Well, I just want to be careful of time. We are over. Are our guests able to stay for one more question? Or okay, we've got a yes. Okay, I'll allow it.
Thanks. Melinda.
Hey, I just finished the TTC Experienced Design course, and I'm so glad to hear all of this. It's really, really wonderful and inspiring. I've been an educator for a while, and now I'm involved in travel and designing, hopefully transformative experiences for people. And I'm wondering about what you want from someone that could bring people there. What would you ideally want people to, like me, who might be planning, to look for, to consider, to start with?
Good question.
So Melinda, just to be sure I understand, you're asking like if you were bringing people to Willamette Valley or Issaquah. Okay.
How to
So I
do
think,
it, gently and caringly.
yeah, I think, as Simone mentioned some statistics about, low impact, high volume, people who are looking for these experiences typically are a higher dollar clientele. So I think, you know, if you're looking to design something or create a tour, for one, make sure that the community is involved first and foremost, right? Well, we need to understand where their hot points are, where they can and can't travel into seasonally, culturally, whatever the case may be for that community. But looking for travelers and visitors who are seeking experiences, people who've been asked to witness or learn something specific or contribute to something concrete. In my experience, it's looking for that visitor who wants to leave with more than they came with, not in the form of, we say trinkets and trash, right? Like the Chinese made magnets. We're not saying leading with those things. I'm not talking about, photos. I'm not talking about those souvenirs. What if it's the potential is not in what visitors carry home with them, but fundamentally changes their understanding of the relationship to place? So in relation to Indigenous perspective, for example, and consumption, if someone visits a tribal community, which is my role now, and they go home to fight for Indigenous sovereignty in their own community because they have a better understanding of what that means when that community can thrive, that's regenerative. If they leave demanding their own city become a better ancestor for the next generation, that's transformation. That's the experience that leads into beginning more healing of the land and of the space. it sounds big and bold, but it starts with just understanding that putting someone into a community and making them part of their world is ultimately that ripple effect.
Thank you.
Anybody else, Simone or Christy?
I thought, sorry, I'm not unmuted. I thought what Dawnielle said was perfect. I couldn't agree more. And I think the thing that really struck me was fundamentally changing their relationship to place. You know, the opportunity for people to feel deeply connected with why this place is so special, is, I think, the ultimate goal, really. So it's I think it's bringing the people along that are looking for that and value that, but it's also probably surprising the people that didn't realize that's what they could get when they were here with an opportunity for that.
Mm-hmm. Well, we will leave it there, but I will say, Melinda, that was a great question, and this is a really good example of why the TTC is building an ecosystem, of common language and common values and common purpose. So, Melinda, you can look at a destination, like the Blue Mountains or Issaquah or Willamette Valley, and understand that there is some semblance of understanding of the work that you're doing, and the travelers that you're attracting, and the approach that you're taking. So it works, in a more symbiotic way, right? So, that's why it's important for us to continue to find new members and bring more people to our programs, and hopefully, get a nice turnout of people applying to be our next early adopter and follow the footsteps of Dawnielle and Christy and Sherry, who's not with us today. So thank you very much to our participants, and for flowing through this with us and keeping it alive. Thank you, Jillian, for your contributions as always, and thanks to the crew that stuck around all the way through. Appreciate it. Have a good rest of your
Great
day.
job,
wherever you are.
team.
Happy holidays, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you.
Happy holidays.
See you later.
Bye.